Are you exhausting yourself trying to please everyone? Billy Graham's powerful message will open your eyes to the hidden danger of being too kind. Stay with us. This may change your life forever. My friends, we live in a world that praises kindness, yet often misunderstands what true kindness is. Many of you spend your lives trying to please everyone, giving your time, your energy, your heart, only to feel empty, used, and spiritually drained. The Bible calls us to love our neighbors, yes, but it also calls us to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. There is a difference between godly kindness and destructive people-pleasing. Jesus himself was kind, compassionate, and loving, yet he was not afraid to say no. He turned over the tables of the money changers. He called out the hypocrisy of the Pharisees. He walked away when people tried to manipulate him. Being kind does not mean being a doormat. When you give everyone access to your life without discernment, you open the door to harm, manipulation, and spiritual decay. Some of you are exhausted because you've mistaken approval for love. You keep saying yes to people who drain your joy, take your peace, and even pull you away from God's will. Remember, the enemy often comes disguised as an angel of light, and sometimes toxic people come wrapped in smiles and sweet words. Not everyone who asks for your kindness has good intention. The Word of God tells us in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guarding your heart means knowing when to step back, when to say no, when to protect your time, your spirit, and your mission. True love sometimes says, I can't let you hurt me anymore. I can't let you keep pulling me away from what God has called me to do. This does not mean we stop loving people. It means we start loving with truth. Real kindness speaks correction when needed. It draws lines when lines must be drawn. It refuses to enable sin, addiction, or manipulation. And yes, sometimes that will make people angry with you. But obedience to God is more important than applause from people. So I ask you today, who in your life is taking advantage of your kindness? Who are you allowing to rob you of your peace, your purpose, your faith for them? Yes. Forgive them, yes, but don't let them steer your life. Your kindness should point people toward Christ, not away from him. Stop trying to be everything for everyone. Be faithful to what God has called you to be. Be loving, but be firm. Be gracious, but be discerning. Because one day you will give an account, not for how many people you pleased, but for how faithfully you live God's truth. Kindness is a beautiful gift, but when it lacks discernment, it can lead to heartache and confusion. Many people give and give without pausing to ask if their kindness is truly helping or simply enabling harmful behavior. True kindness is guided by wisdom and rooted in God's truth, not in a desperate need for approval. You are called to love others, but you are not called to lose yourself in the process. There are times when saying yes to everyone makes you say no to your own peace and spiritual growth. Blind kindness often creates an open door for manipulation and misuse, leaving you drained and unfulfilled. God never intended for you to become a people pleaser who sacrifices their joy for temporary acceptance. Discernment helps you see who genuinely needs your support and who only takes advantage of it. In relationships, whether with friends, family, or partners, kindness must come with boundaries. Loving someone does not mean tolerating disrespect or unhealthy behavior. Sometimes the most loving act is to step back, to let a person face the consequences of their choices, and to pray for their growth from a distance. True compassion seeks the highest good, not endless compromise. Your kindness becomes powerful when it is aligned with God's wisdom. Pray before you give, listen before you commit, and ask God to guide your actions. This kind of kindness builds people up without breaking you down. It allows you to serve others while staying faithful to your calling rather than being consumed by their endless demand. Remember, even Jesus showed mercy with discernment. He healed, he forgave, but he also walked away from those who only sought to use him. Follow his example. Love deeply but wise. Kindness without discernment is like pouring water into a broken vessel, but kindness with wisdom is living water that refreshes both you and those around you. Many people believe that saying yes to everyone makes them loving, but in truth, it can become a heavy burden on the heart. When you constantly strive to please others, you slowly lose sight of your own purpose and the direction God has planned for you. This path of people pleasing often leads to disappointment because no matter how hard you try, you cannot meet everyone's expectations or demands. When your worth is tied to making others happy, you open the door to emotional exhaustion. You give pieces of yourself away, hoping for approval, but what you often receive is more pressure, more requests, and less peace. Spiritual harm comes quietly in these moments. Your prayer life weakens, your faith becomes shallow, and you start living for people instead of living for God's calling. True love does not demand constant sacrifice without rest or recognition. Sometimes the most courageous act is to set boundaries, even when it risks displeasing others. Jesus did not heal every person in every village. He followed the will of his Father above all. Likewise, you are called to follow God, not to become a prisoner of endless expectations. Relationships built on people-pleasing rarely thrive because they are built on fear rather than truth. You may fear rejection or conflict, so you keep giving in. But over time, this erodes both your self-respect and the respect others have for you. God calls you to stand firm in love, love that tells the truth, even when it is hard to hear. The path to freedom begins with surrendering your need for everyone's approval and seeking only God's. When you live to please Him first, your yes becomes meaningful and your no becomes strong. This is not selfishness, it is wisdom. Only then can you give from a place of strength, not emptiness, and experience the joy of relationships rooted in honesty, not obligation. Many see love as endless sacrifice, yet Jesus himself showed us a different example. He healed the sick, fed the hungry, and forgave the sinner. But he also set boundaries when necessary. He withdrew to pray. He walked away from crowds that sought to use him, and he spoke firmly to those who misled others. His love was deep and unconditional, but it was never blind or without purpose. Boundaries do not make your love weaker, they make it stronger. When you let everyone dictate your time and your heart, you soon find yourself drained, unable to give real compassion. Jesus loved without being controlled, and so should you. Setting boundaries protects not only your peace, but also your ability to love others in a way that honors God. The hardest part of love is saying no. Saying no to manipulation, no to unhealthy expectations, no to being used as a constant resource for others' convenience. This is not cruelty. This is Christ-like wisdom. He showed kindness, but he never compromised his mission for the demands of people who refuse to change. In your relationships, learn from his example. Love with grace, but speak the truth when it is needed. Walk with compassion, but step back when your presence only feeds unhealthy patterns. Just as Jesus did, retreat to God for strength when the crowd becomes too loud and the demands too heavy. True love is not measured by how much you endure, but by how much your actions reflect God's heart. Boundaries protect the mission he placed within you, so you can keep giving without losing yourself. Jesus' life was a perfect balance of mercy and truth. Follow his path, and you will find peace that people-pleasing can never bring. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your heart, and that truth may feel hard to accept. Your heart is precious, a wellspring of life, and when you give it freely to all without discernment, you open doors for disappointment, betrayal, and misuse. God calls you to love all people, but he never called you to let everyone shape your emotions or decisions. Love does not mean leaving the gates of your heart unguarded. There are those who will appreciate your kindness, and there are those who will take it for granted or even twist it for their gain. You risk losing the joy and peace that God. Even Jesus chose his inner circle carefully. He loved the multitudes, but trusted only a few to walk closely with him. Limiting access is not about building walls of bitterness. It is about building gates of wisdom. It means choosing who can influence your thoughts, your dreams, and your faith. You cannot walk in your God-given purpose if your heart is entangled in the chaos of everyone's demands, opinions, and drama. In relationships, giving everyone equal access often leads to confusion and pain. Some people are meant to pass through your life for a season, not remain in your inner circle. Pray for clarity about who strengthens your walk with God and who hinders it. This is where healthy boundaries turn into spiritual protection. Remember, your heart belongs first to God. When you give him the throne of your heart, you will know who to let in and who to love from a distance. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table, but everyone deserves your prayers. Protect your heart, and you will protect the purpose God planted in you. Enabling wrongdoing is not love. It is silent agreement with what harms both the person and your relationship with God. Many think that by staying quiet, by always giving in, or by overlooking harmful actions, they are keeping peace. But real peace cannot exist where sin and destruction are being quietly supported. Love sometimes requires you to take a stand even when it shakes the comfort of those around you. When you allow harmful behaviors to continue unchecked, whether in a partner, a friend, or even a family member, you are not showing mercy. You are allowing their chains to tighten. Jesus never enabled sin. He forgave, yes, but he also said, go and sin no more. Forgiveness without truth leaves the wound unhealed and the soul unfree. Love must correct when it sees danger ahead. Many are afraid to speak up because they fear conflict, rejection, or being labeled as unkind. But the Bible tells us in Proverbs 27:6, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Sometimes the wound of truth is what saves a person from greater pain later. True kindness is willing to risk misunderstanding to protect the soul. Enabling creates a cycle of destruction that spreads. What you permit often continues and grows. When you step in with truth and love, you may face resistance at first, but you plant the seed for real change. Silence, on the other hand, often allows sin to strengthen its root. There is no love in watching someone drown and never throwing them a lifeline. Your calling is not to make everyone comfortable, but to reflect Christ's heart, a heart full of mercy yet firm in truth. Stop enabling what you know is wrong. Pray for wisdom, speak in love, and trust that God's truth, even when hard, brings the only kind of freedom that lasts. Your time, your energy, and your spirit are sacred gifts from God, not resources for everyone to drain at their convenience. Too many people live in constant exhaustion because they have forgotten this truth. They give their best hours to the wrong commitments, their emotional strength to unhealthy relationships, and their spiritual focus to things that pull them away from God's plan. What you give your time to, you give your life to. When you say yes to everyone, you are often saying no to the very things that bring growth and peace. The Bible reminds us in Ephesians 5:15-16 to walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Your time is limited. Your energy is precious. Your spirit is eternal. Use them wisely and not wastefully. Protecting these gifts doesn't make you selfish. It makes you faithful. When Jesus withdrew to pray, it wasn't because he didn't care about the crowds. It was because he valued his connection with the Father more than the noise of the world. Likewise, there are moments when you must step back, rest, and realign with God's purpose to serve effectively. The world will always have more demands than you can meet, and some people will take as much as you give without thinking of your well-being. Set healthy boundaries. Learn to say no without guilt, because every yes you give outside of God's will becomes a weight, not a blessing. Your kindness should flow from strength, not exhaustion. Remember, God never called you to burn out for the approval of others. He called you to shine with his light, and a light cannot shine if the flame is constantly drained. Guard your time, renew your spirit, and spend your energy where it produces eternal fruit. God calls us to love, but not to be doormats. There is a difference between Christ-like humility and letting others trample your worth. True love does not mean tolerating abuse, manipulation, or constant disrespect. Jesus loved deeply, yet he never allowed others to control his mission or silence his truth. Loving others does not mean losing yourself in the process. It means reflecting God's heart while standing firm in your own. Many confuse endless compliance with spiritual maturity, but this is a dangerous misunderstanding. When you continually give in to harmful demands just to keep peace, you are not showing strength. You are feeding patterns that destroy both you and the other person. Love that ignores truth is not love at all. It is surrender to fear. Real love sometimes says, this is not right, and I cannot allow it to continue. When you set healthy boundaries, you create space for respect and real transformation. Jesus washed his disciples' feet, but he also rebuked them when they were wrong. That balance is the essence of godly love, humble yet firm, gentle yet unwavering. Do not let guilt convince you that standing up for what is right is unkind. Being a doormat drains your spirit, steals your joy, and replaces God's plan with constant appeasement. The world will never stop demanding more, and people who benefit from your silence will rarely encourage your strength. Love as Christ loved, with compassion and truth hand in hand, and you will see his power work in you and through you. You were bought with a price. Your worth is not measured by how many people you please, but by how faithfully you walk with God. Loving others does not mean sacrificing your God-given dignity. It means serving them without surrendering your soul. Toxic relationships drain spiritual growth because they pull you away from peace, purpose, and God's calling. When you surround yourself with people who constantly complain, manipulate, or disrespect your values, your spirit becomes weary, your focus weakens, and your faith often suffers in silence. God designed relationships to strengthen you, not to break you. And if the connection leaves you empty more than uplifted, it may not be from him. You cannot walk in God's light while staying chained to people who choose darkness. The Bible says in Ephesians 4:15 to speak the truth in love. That balance is what transforms lives. Not empty approval, but loving truth spoken with a heart to heal, not to harm. Firm love builds trust even if it hurts at first. People may not always like what you say, but they will remember your integrity. Being honest does not mean being harsh. It means caring enough to say what needs to be said for someone's good. Jesus was never cruel, but he was never silent in the face of destruction. In relationships, this kind of love prevents cycles of pain. It stops you from pretending everything is fine while your spirit cries for change. It teaches others to respect your boundaries while still feeling your care. A relationship rooted in truth will always outlast one built on false peace. Christ-like love is not about winning everyone's favor. It is about honoring God with your words and actions. Stand firm in that love. Be gentle, but do not compromise. Be kind, but do not lie to protect sin. The world needs this kind of love, one that speaks truth wrapped in grace and holds its ground for the sake of eternity. Remember, true kindness isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about living in God's truth. If this message spoke to you, share it today and start setting healthy, godly boundaries in your life.